Listen up and listen up closely. For those of you who want to make some money out of the market, particularly money from altcoins, you're going to want to listen to the video because I'm not just going to give you the reasons why today I think altcoins are likely to pump based on some data, but I'm going to tell you how to prepare because we like to keep things practical on the channel. The purpose is to make money from crypto, and I want to give you guys the steps to make that a reality. So with that being said, get your notepad out, get your coffee, and importantly, make sure you do like the video if you enjoy, or importantly, learn something new, and subscribe so that you can achieve your crypto goals. Let's begin by having a look at the crypto waterfall. Now, most people know this as the path to alt season, and it basically says that money flows into crypto, first of all through Bitcoin, then flows into Ethereum, of course, then draining Bitcoin's overall market growth. And then from Ethereum, that starts to deplete and money goes into large caps. Large caps then form and flow the money into, smaller caps basically. And this is the general flow of the market, but this is only half the story. We kind of also have to look into a whole new aspect of why projects pump in the first place, but that's kind of outside the scope of this video. The reason why I'm showing you this is because anyone, any man, woman, and child under the crypto sun right now can see this, come over to CoinMarketCap and go to themselves, okay, well, Bitcoin's pumping. It's been about $48,000. It's up about 10% or 11% on the week. As you can see, alts aren't really pumping as much. Again, remember, alts are significantly smaller in size versus Bitcoin, and yet most of them aren't up as much of a percentage. Neither is Ethereum. So you can kind of pinpoint us right now to be somewhere in this phase. And I think anyone that critically thinks about this situation can very obviously see that. But I want to show you a chart that I sort of put together today to, I think, really exemplify the fact that alt season is, well, we can kind of see on the horizon. It's coming down here soon. I think we're due for a massive alt season coming up here because of this. Now, what you're looking at can be a little bit confusing. So in this sort of green color, this is the market dominance of altcoins excluding the top 10. So we're getting rid of Bitcoin right down to Chainlink. So they're all out of the picture. We're only looking towards Dogecoin and down, which is a certain percentage. I think right now it's likely to be around about 13 or so % of the total market size. We then get and add on the global market cap. Again, remember, we have market dominance here. So the strength of those projects versus all the money in the market, which is the global market cap in red. And we pair these together, we notice a really interesting trend. First of all, the blue lines over here, this sort of trend we're in right now is in respects to the market dominance, excluding the top 10. And the channel we're trading in, you can see we're right at the very bottom. We're at support, basically, which I believe we're going to have a rebound. We might fall slightly beneath it, but here is where it kind of comes back into where I'm sort of wowed at, right? When we pair this again with the global market cap, we can see that they are very separated right now. Like the bands are extremely apart. Now, every time we've seen this in the past, every time these bands grow apart, they eventually come to snap back in quite sharply. And when they do, they inverse, okay? So we can kind of note, if I point out, I'm not too sure if you guys can see very well with the green screen here, but if I show you, every time they touch, they end up snapping the inverse, and they come and touch over here, right? And then it snaps, and then it inverses again, snaps, and it inverses again. Now, what that actually means when they do touch each other and then spring in the opposite direction is an alt season does typically occur, okay? And that is very simple to see because the market dominance of all of these altcoins outside of the top 10, when that grows, that means that all of those small cap altcoins, they're having money injected in them, which of course beats the rest of the market. And considering the rest of the market is this red line, which is the top 10 altcoins, including Bitcoin, of course, that's going to drop down. And as I said, when I really mean that they snap back in together pretty well every single time that they touch, they cause a very sharp spike. And when they draw apart quite widely like this, they tend to come together even faster and harder, which is why I'm looking at this massive gap between these 2 points now. And while I do think they will eventually, sort of slowly come together, I think around April will be the time in which it does sort of snap down like this and they kind of inverse. Now, we didn't have this in the last cycle, but honestly, I think the reason why might have been because the massive COVID crash did skew things. I think as things were tracking, it would have probably worked out that way. Again, I can only speculate, so I'm not saying this is true for sure. But actually, on the day of the halving, the 11th of May 2020, they did kind of get quite close at one point, okay? And they, of course, did go their separate ways until about a month and a half later, when they actually finally did touch and they actually sort of backtracked again, okay? I think it was really skewed in the last cycle, but hey, if you want to criticize that, that's up to you entirely. I get it. Sometimes data is a little bit subjective depending on how you want to look at it. So all is to say that the shortest time period between, at least in the last 1.5 years, that we've had these two converse and snap between each other is this period over here, which has been about, well, since August to October. So that's about 2 months. And so I think that we could probably land anywhere between, we're about month 4 right now. I think we could probably land around month 5 to month 7 or 8, which means it would actually coincidentally, again, put us at the time of the halving, which would make sense, right? Traditionally with the halving, we see Bitcoin's price and consequently likely the top altcoins will probably fall a little bit down, the global market will, while the smaller cap altcoins will have all of that money flow into it, like we kind of said it would over here with the phase, with that waterfall effect, which would allow us to have that inverse, which would probably cause a pretty great alt season to begin the bull run like we would see even back over here, right? We had that great alt season. And so you can kind of look at this as a trader or as a swing trader, like I sometimes like to do as an investor, and you can begin hedging into this actually happening, right? You can take some trades now into some of these coins outside of the top 10 and maybe look to actually benefit from this. But I think I'm going to show you some more data here to maybe help paint a better picture before I show you what to actually do to take full advantage. Now, this chart very briefly is looking at the miner monthly revenue. In blue here, it's the mined Bitcoin. You can see it kind of like drops down and then plateaus, drops down and plateaus with, of course, each time it getting less and less because there's half the amount of Bitcoin in each block. So, of course, it's going to be dropping by half here. But the main sort of line we're looking at is this yellow one, right? The millions in terms of revenue per day mined by Bitcoin miners. Now, after each halving, which is, again, just simply represented by this drop here, we can see that it slightly, I move my big head, slightly moves down after or around the time of the halving. As you can see here, the amount of revenue does drop, and back over here, the revenue does drop. Now, all this looks quite normal to me, right? Overall, the amount of revenue created and generated by these miners is increasing cycle upon cycle because these guys are just simply mining more Bitcoin and holding this Bitcoin, which makes total sense to me. But what really drew my attention and really got me scratching my head is the fact that every single halving, we see that the revenue starts dropping off weirdly around 1 month before the actual halving itself. So as you can see, like I've outlined here, it actually starts again 1 month before. So let's just say the halving is January the 1st. On December the 1st, we start to see revenue drop off. Every single cycle, typically speaking anyway, we seem to see the actual day of the halving be sometime in the middle of this sort of, I guess, dropping off event, okay? And what's really crazy is the fact that right now, 2.5 months out from the halving, so 1.5 months before this is even supposed to be happening, we have a massive downtick in the revenue generated by these miners. Like, this is equal to what happened way back here in the 2016 halving event. Already, again, we're 1.5 months under due, right? So it's kind of weird to see this, and this might actually be a very valid reason as to some of these miners actually capitulating. You know, I have gone on record to say a few videos ago that I don't think miners are going to capitulate this time around because, as we can see here, the revenue is even more than in the previous 2 cycles. I know it doesn't look like much, but we're talking about millions here, right? Multi-millions. And so, of course, with that, you know, these miners can stay in the black. They can weather the storm. When they're literally getting paid for half the work that they're still doing, right? They can still stay in the black because they've been earning all the revenue through many different means, including through Bitcoin directly, to stay afloat. But if we're finding the revenues dropping off already, that's interesting. That kind of causes a little bit of concern in the fact that we might actually have a genuine capitulation event this time around as well. Just like the data has said it would, which is kind of crazy because so far, everything that's happened in the market, it is literally repeating, not rhyming, repeating exactly. So again, this may cause, or potentially for a reason, for a capitulation event in April, May, which is kind of when it roughly does happen, around the time of the halving or a month after. So keep this in the back of your mind. And also just remember, none of this is truly guaranteed. All it takes is one article, either bullish or bearish, to swing the market suddenly. Like a prime example was recently in October, we had Cointelegraph put a false approval out for the Bitcoin ETFs well and truly months before they were approved, before anyone even knew that they were going to be. And this caused, well, what I strongly do believe as the actual creation of the bull run, that massive pump up in October, and we haven't seen those lows since. So keep in mind that they could literally, fabricate the actual halving crash when in reality, maybe the data is wrong in this case. Maybe all of this stuff I just told you is false, and but they could also push that narrative if they wanted to with a couple articles. I mean, we have massive, institutions in the space now with a vested interest in getting as much Bitcoin before this happens. They know it's going to happen. People are ready for this. And so, of course, they want to accumulate as much as possible, which, again, it could be an indication they want to crash to the price one last time before that happens. And before we get into the reasons why I think, or at least show you how to prepare for this, there's a few other sort of charts I want to show you very briefly here. One here is the 1458-day or 4-year moving average represented by this line. Every single cycle, basically in the crux of the bear market, we touch this line twice. Bang, bang, 1, 2 in the 2015 bear market. Bang, bang in the last, well, 2 cycles ago now, isn't it? And in this case, we have actually fallen beneath it in this recent bear market, and which is quite interesting because we haven't really fallen beneath it and sustained below it in the previous 2 cycles. So in my opinion, this might be a possible reason as to say, if you're someone looking to take advantage of a crash here, simply plotting the 1458 moving average might be a good indication that we won't fall beneath that line. And what I'm sort of saying here is, if you go ahead and plot this on TradingView, I've forecasted what it might roughly look at over the next few months. And I do believe that if we were to touch this point, which again, I don't believe we will, we've already gone beneath it, as you can see here, in the last bear market, and we've definitely held above it recently. That's about a $28,000 Bitcoin. Now, that's quite a large drop. That's 40% from the current price. But again, use this to your advantage. I don't think we'll fall anything beneath that. And so if you guys have, I think Ben Cohen or some of these guys are saying $9,000, $11,000 Bitcoin. I mean, for that to happen, we're going to have to seriously break some massive barriers here. It's going to be almost impossible, I firmly do believe. That would actually be a very big indication that there's some manipulation happening. And one last final thing as well, the Bitcoin rainbow chart, well, we're in the blue, right? We're way down here right now, which means it's accumulation time, baby. While it might feel like all these altcoins are just so much higher than what they were, 3 months ago or whatever, back in October of last year, I want you guys to remember we are much closer to the bottom of where these altcoins are going to be in late this year and even 2025 versus what they have been in the last few months. So just remember that if you're someone holding off, saying to yourself, oh, I'm going to keep accumulating cash, I think you're crazy. Right? I think you're crazy. Now, no disrespect to you, of course, do what you want, but I'm just saying right now, that's why I firmly do believe 70% in, 30% out, or around about that, not financial advice, is probably the sweet spot in this case. So let's get into very briefly how you can benefit, of course. Now, this is a screenshot taken from CoinGecko of 15 of the top narratives that have performed the best, at least in 2023, out of a total of 139 narratives. Now, the remaining 27% of crypto interest was spread across 124 narratives. So that means that about 73% of all demand was in these top 15 narratives. And I've ranked deep into 10 out of 10, and layer 2 and layer 1's all 10 out of 10. And while they might look like very small growth narratives in this case, I strongly think you compare them to other narratives, they blow them out of the park, right? It just looks kind of funny because most of the demand, at least last year, came from AI. And keep in mind, this really is old data. It's 2 months old, which is 3 years in crypto, okay? So needless to say, what you're trying to do in this case to take advantage as a starting point here is, I think, look towards these top narratives. Look towards the narratives that will benefit the most from an alt season, and you're going to, of course, have the most explosive gains. As I mentioned, the crypto waterfall chart I introduced you to at the start of this video is half the problem, it's half the equation. What you have to also look at is the narratives cryptos are in, because that's where the money will flow initially before your project pumps. So here's how to benefit as a trader. This is what I would give as not financial advice in the most loose way possible. now might be the perfect time to consider a short-term, long position on bottom 11 altcoins down, right? So again, pretty much from Dogecoin all the way down to the 200 million market cap range, especially those in hot narratives currently in accumulation phase. As a trader, you know what accumulation phase is. Basically, we're not trying to buy the altcoins right now that are super duper extended. We're looking for the ones that are in great narratives, quality projects that have yet to really move too much because they are ready for this possible event. And as an investor, we are far closer to the bottom of the cycle then to the peak, even to the middle of the cycle, to be honest with you guys. Back in the rainbow chart here, that should give you a great indication of what I'm sort of saying. And so while right now might not be the best price for many altcoins, consider accumulating what I call your big bags before June and July. Now, big bags are what you're sort of holding for 12 months or more to avoid capital gains tax. This is things like, again, largest positions, most ROI, overall focused projects. And capital gains tax, for those who don't know, is essentially when you're taxed on all of the revenue you make. Whereas if you sell your altcoins after, even a day after your 12 months of owning that coin, you are only taxed on half of the revenue. You keep basically safeguarded 50%. Now, of course, that changes per location and region. For Australia, and I do believe as well for the UK, that applies. US is a little bit different. Now, for small bags, right, this is what I would say you can look to trade with, for example, speculation money, maybe reinvest, right, take some off the top, buy some quickly, do that sort of degen-y stuff, whatever you might want to do. This is what you can afford to buy and sell over the next 12 months. So all I'm really saying here is just stop for a second and think to yourself, okay, given what is likely to happen over the next few months, you have the data saying we're due for a crash, you have Quiron's personal opinion saying we're likely to hold steady. What am I going to do to benefit? And the way in which I would always tell guys to do it, at least the way I do it, is by looking at this as a risk to reward situation. Okay, so if you buy crypto right now, if you buy any of the top 2 projects, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or if you buy any of the top 3 to 10 altcoins, or even top 200, any altcoin almost, besides from the obvious crap scam coins, you're likely to still make money, respective to, of course, what you buy that, what current price and market cap it is. But if you decide to hold cash, what you're saying is I'm hedging in the fact that, prices are going to fall from here. Or you might just be simply someone looking to hold your small bags, right? Hold some money on the side to take advantage of maybe some new coins or do some degen stuff or play around with DeFi in the crux of the bull run, which you most definitely will be hit with capital gains tax. So I would say for your big bags, for the ones you're looking to take the most advantage of the bull run with, to have those in before June, July, of course, and that might mean buying now or buying around the next few months, depending, of course, on how the crash does go. And if we have an alt season, maybe you want to buy some before that happens, because again, if you do hold more cash, you might be buying at a 50% markup, even if we do have a crash, right? The crash might not be as crashy as you think, if I'm correct. Now, if you are someone looking to take full advantage of what I've said here and look to actually buy some altcoins that outside the top 10, even inside the top 10, but you haven't bought them yet, well, this is the best way to do it, okay? I've given you guys in my recent Solana video this interactive sheet in which you can go. Of course, the link is going to be completely free and available in my free Discord under the Miro board section. You guys can see under the Solana exit plan. This is at the very bottom of that document, and it takes you through step by step by step. Okay, what happens? Is this going to 10x? Yes or no? And what to do from there. Like, it's a yes, no situation to help you find entry levels for your projects. Now, many people will charge you for this, and I know because I'm someone who was considering making this a little course in of itself. But why do that? It's completely free. I'm trying to, provide as much value as possible. And so I would love a like on the video just to show a, token of appreciation for this. Again, if you want to have access to this, I've already added it on the Discord under the Solana exit plan sort of Miro board sheet, okay? So that's going to do it. Consider the information. And I would say, again, always think about this in your own sort of words, right? You could take my opinion, you might take someone like Ben Cohen's prediction, you might take another guy expecting us to just have a massive old season tomorrow, for example, and kind of work out a middle ground and then go ahead from there. But again, just guys, please, risk to reward, always think of it in that regard. If I do this, what's the risk versus reward? Or if I do this, the alternative. Thanks so much, take good care, and all the best, by the way, for the next few months here. Hopefully it works out for you. Take care. Bye.